Jefferson's vision of republicanism draws on ancient traditions that descend both from Greece and Rome and from English constitutional history, and are synthesized into a new vision of a republic founded on small farmers, virtuous and independent, who are the foundation of American freedom. That's Jefferson's vision. And it's a vision of republicanism, a radical vision of republicanism that is part of the American spirit of 1776, an electric moment when a people on what must be admitted are relatively thin causes, relatively modest complaints, overthrow their king. It's one of the most extraordinary acts of rebellion in all of history. The American people, at the time they rebel, are lightly taxed, are fairly governed, certainly by all comparative standards, and are, in fact, quite possibly the wealthiest people in the world. Perhaps, at the time they revolt, among the very wealthiest people who have ever lived on the face of planet Earth. So this is not an uprising of an oppressed and impoverished people. It's an uprising that is articulated on constitutional and ideological grounds of an extraordinary people that provide an extraordinary justification for their acts in political philosophy. And Jefferson's vision of a new kind of republic on American soil is a radical vision of a republic. And Jefferson's vision of a republic is necessarily a fragile one, precisely because it is such a radical one. Already in the way that Jefferson thinks of private property as completely owned, the kind of land ownership that he sees, the kind of property rights that he imagines, contains within it the seeds of transformation, the seeds of capitalism. And we'll explore in future lectures how ideas of free trade and free land ownership and complete property rights are part of a transformation of society and economy to a new capitalist and industrial order that in fact would undermine the very social vision of Jefferson. Jefferson's vision of republicanism is also radical in that it draws on this ancient sense of virtue for the public good. And though Jefferson firmly believes in private property rights, there is also a strand that runs through Jefferson and many of the other founding fathers, especially in the years of the Revolution, of sacrificing for the public good. That is one of the core ideas of Roman republicanism. For the Romans, virtue, manliness, is the willingness to sacrifice for your country, to sacrifice for the greater good, to sacrifice for your community. And this idea of republicanism, sacrifice of private for the public good, is alive and flourishing. It's electric during the Revolution itself. It's there in the writings of other founding figures, like John Adams, who believes in a kind of radical Republican revolution. Just as the seeds of transformation were deeply embedded in Jefferson's idea of Republican land ownership, so the potential for enormous transformation is present in the idea of Republican sacrifice for the public good. The colonists who revolt against England believe that they are establishing a new republic in which individual citizens will be willing to sacrifice for the public good. But almost immediately, they discover how extraordinarily difficult that can be to achieve. And they almost immediately begin to talk about balances between public and private interests. And very quickly, in the 1780s, a new kind of strain of political ideology comes to challenge the radical republicanism that inspires many of the colonists in revolt. And the American Constitution, which is designed in the summer of 1787 in Philadelphia by a band of men who wished to replace the dysfunctional Articles of Confederation by establishing a stronger national government, create a constitution that vests far more powerful in this central government, and do so in a way that replaces the politics of radical republicanism that inspire the rebellion. One of the ways that this is visible is in the language of interest. And if you look at the core texts that the authors of the Constitution used to defend the design of the Constitution, especially the extraordinary series of political pamphlets that were part of the convention debates in New York, the papers that we know as the Federalist, you see the ideology of American constitutionalism. And part of this constitutional design is as a way to balance interests. And in particular in the writings of James Madison, who is, like Jefferson, deeply committed to republicanism, you see a kind of practical politics prevailing that speaks of interests. Madison says that men aren't angels. He's accommodating himself to the realities, to the interests, to the selfishness, to the private wishes of individual citizens. And so Madison's vision for a constitutional order is one that is necessarily willing to accommodate private interests in a robust way. And so very quickly you see that the idea of a republic is fragile, that it depends upon a shared vision of the common good that is very difficult to reconcile with individuals' private interests. And so the design of the federal Constitution that is ratified and becomes our Constitution is designed with this pragmatism, this willingness to accommodate public interest, to balance between public and private interests that became so urgent in the context of the 1780s.